The letter trembled in her hands, not from the cold November wind that swept through their small Pennsylvania farmhouse, but from the weight of words written by fingers that had pulled triggers, by eyes that had witnessed hell itself. Sarah Mitchell had received 12 letters from her husband since he marched away with the 20th Maine Infantry. But this one was different. The handwriting was shakier, the paper stained with something dark she couldn't identify or perhaps didn't want to. And it began with words that would haunt her forever. My dearest Sarah, if you were reading this, I am likely standing at the gates of eternity. It was April 1863. The nation was tearing itself apart, brother against brother, father against son. The Civil War had ravaged the land for 2 brutal years, and the worst battles were yet to come. In the small town of Bangor, Maine, Sarah Mitchell lived with her 2 young children, 8-year-old Emma and 5-year-old Thomas, waiting for news that might never come. Every day, she watched the road, hoping to see the familiar figure of her husband, Lieutenant James Mitchell, walking toward home. Instead, letters arrived, precious, painful windows into a world of unimaginable suffering. James had enlisted in the summer of 1861, driven by conviction and duty. He believed in the Union, in the fundamental truth that all men were created equal, and he was willing to die for it. But belief and reality are different things. The romantic notions of glory and honor that had filled his head as he signed his name to the enlistment papers had long since been buried in the blood-soaked fields of Virginia and Maryland. This letter number 13, as Sarah would later call it, was written in the aftermath of the Battle of Fredericksburg, one of the Union's most devastating defeats. James had survived, though thousands of his brothers in arms had not. He had seen things that no man should see, done things that haunted his dreams, and yet somehow he had found the strength to put pen to paper and write to the woman he loved, to the children who called him father, to the life he desperately hoped to return to. My dearest Sarah, if you are reading this, I am likely standing at the gates of eternity, waiting to be judged for the things I have done in this life. But before that judgment comes, I must tell you what is in my heart, what I have learned in these months of fire and blood, and what I pray you will teach our children when I am gone. We crossed the Rappahannock River on December 11th. The town of Fredericksburg lay before us, and beyond it, the hills where the Confederates waited with their artillery and their rifles. General Burnside ordered us forward, and forward we went, like sheep to the slaughter. I do not say this to criticize our commanders, for I am but a simple lieutenant who knows nothing of grand strategy. I say this only to help you understand what happened next. The sound of a battlefield is unlike anything you can imagine. My love, it is not the dramatic clash of swords you might read about in novels, nor the heroic charges depicted in paintings. It is chaos incarnate, a thunderous, soul-crushing roar that drowns out thought itself. The artillery shells scream overhead like demons, exploding in fountains of earth and fire. Rifles crack in endless volleys, creating a wall of sound that presses against your chest. Men shout orders that cannot be heard, scream in agony that blends into the general cacophony, pray for mercy that does not come. I led my company up Mary's Heights that day. We advanced across an open field, exposed and vulnerable, while Confederate riflemen poured shot into our ranks from behind a stone wall. Men fell around me like harvested wheat. Young William Bradford from Portland, who used to joke about the pretty girls back home, a bullet took him in the throat, and he drowned in his own blood before I could reach him. Sergeant O'Malley, who had a wife and 4 children waiting in Boston, an artillery shell landed so close that ... Sarah, I cannot describe what remained. These were not just soldiers, they were sons, husbands, fathers, brothers. They were men with dreams and fears, with people who loved them and needed them to come home. Sarah paused in her reading, tears streaming down her face. She pressed the letter to her chest, as if by doing so she could somehow reach across the miles and hold her husband close. Emma, who had been playing with her doll nearby, looked up and saw her mother's anguish. The child understood, in the way children do, that something terrible was being revealed, something that would change their family forever. If you've ever received news that shattered your world, you know this moment, the instant when reality shifts and nothing will ever be quite the same again. We charged 6 times that day, Sarah. 6 times we were ordered to advance up that hill, and 6 times we were driven back by withering fire that cut through our ranks like a scythe through grass. I saw valor beyond measure, men running forward into certain death because duty demanded it, soldiers picking up the flags of fallen comrades, and carrying them forward, even as bullets tore through the air around them. I saw cowardice too, though I do not blame those who fell to the ground and refused to rise, for terror is a rational response to such horror. By the fourth charge, I had stopped thinking of victory or defeat. I had stopped thinking of the Union, of slavery, of politics, of all the grand causes that had brought us to this place. I thought only of survival mine and that of the men under my command. I shouted orders more from habit than strategy. I pulled wounded soldiers behind whatever meager cover we could find. I fired my revolver at shapes on the hill, not knowing or caring whether my bullets found their marks. When darkness finally fell, the shooting gradually ceased. The Confederate forces held their positions, and we held ours, or rather, we held the ground we had failed to take from them. The field between us was carpeted with Union dead and wounded. Thousands of men lay in the cold December night, crying out for water, for their mothers, for God's mercy. The Confederates, to their credit, did not fire upon us as we crawled out to retrieve our wounded. In the darkness, soldiers from both sides moved among the fallen, and sometimes Confederate soldiers would help us carry our wounded back to our lines. In those moments, the insanity of it all became crystal clear. We were killing each other during the day, but in the darkness we remembered that we were all human beings, all Americans, all brothers, in a deeper sense than the causes that divided us. I found Private Daniel Cooper from our company lying in the mud with a shattered leg. He was only 17 years old. Sarah, his mother, had tried to stop him from enlisting, but he had lied about his age because he believed in the cause. As I lifted him, he grabbed my arm with surprising strength and said, "Lieutenant, sir, did we win? Did we take the hill?" And I looked into his young face, saw the hope there, the desperate need to believe that his sacrifice had meaning, and I lied to him. "Yes, Daniel," I said, "we took the hill. You were a hero." He smiled then, even as blood soaked through the makeshift bandage I had tied around his leg, and he said, I'm glad it wasn't for nothing." He died 2 days later in the field hospital, and I have carried the weight of that lie ever since. What does it mean to be a hero, Sarah? Before this war, I thought I knew. I thought heroes were brave men who charged fearlessly into battle, who performed extraordinary feats of courage, who won glory for themselves and their causes. But now I have seen real heroism, and it looks nothing like I imagined. Real heroism is the surgeon who works for 20 hours straight, sawing off shattered limbs in a desperate attempt to save lives, even though he knows that many of his patients will die anyway. Real heroism is the chaplain who moves among the wounded, offering comfort and prayer even as bullets and shells continue to fall around him. Real heroism is the man who shares his last piece of bread with a comrade who is starving, or who gives his blanket to a wounded soldier who is shivering in the cold, even though he himself will suffer for it. Real heroism is also found in those who did not come to this war at all, in women like you, Sarah, who keep homes and families together while their husbands are away, who work fields and manage businesses, who raise children alone and live with constant fear and uncertainty. You are the true heroes of this conflict. Though you will never receive medals or have your names recorded in history books, your sacrifice is quieter but no less profound. Sarah set the letter down for a moment, overwhelmed by waves of conflicting emotions: pride in her husband's courage, horror at what he had endured, grief for the young men who had died so far from home, and underneath it all, a growing fear that James might not return, that this letter might be his final testimony, his last words to her and their children. She looked at Emma and Thomas, who were now both watching her with wide, worried eyes. How could she explain this to them? How could she help them understand the complexities of war, of sacrifice, of love that endures even in the face of unimaginable suffering? She picked up the letter again, her hands steadier now, driven by a need to know everything James wanted to tell her, to hear his voice through his words, to hold on to whatever part of him these pages could preserve. After Fredericksburg, our regiment was pulled back from the front lines to rest and regroup. We had lost nearly half our men killed, wounded, captured, or simply missing. Those of us who remained were hollow-eyed and haunted, moving through our days like ghosts. We dug new trenches, cleaned our rifles, wrote letters to the families of fallen comrades, and tried not to think too much about what we had experienced or what awaited us in the battles to come. It was during this time, Sarah, that I learned the most important lessons of this war, lessons that have nothing to do with military tactics or political philosophy, but everything to do with what it means to be human. Let me share them with you. for they are the true legacy of these terrible years, more valuable than any military victory or political triumph. The first lesson came from an unexpected source. In our camp, we had a soldier named Benjamin, a former slave who had escaped from a plantation in Virginia and made his way to Union lines. He enlisted in our regiment despite knowing that if he were captured, he would face a fate worse than death. Benjamin was quiet and kept mostly to himself, but he was also one of the bravest and most capable soldiers I have ever known. One night, as we sat around a small fire, I asked him why he had chosen to fight, why he had risked everything for a country that had enslaved him and his people for generations. He looked at me with eyes that had seen more suffering than I could imagine, and he said something I will never forget. "Lieutenant, I don't fight for the country that was, I fight for the country that could be. I fight so my children won't have to wear chains. I fight so that one day, maybe not in my lifetime but someday, a black man and a white man can stand as equals, not as master and slave. That's worth dying for, sir. That's worth everything." In that moment, Sarah, I understood the true meaning of this war in a way I never had before. This conflict is not ultimately about politics or economics or states' rights. It is about the fundamental question of whether we truly believe the words written in our Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Benjamin taught me that freedom is not just the absence of chains, but the presence of hope, the possibility of becoming something more than what you were born to be. The second lesson came from an enemy, or rather, from someone who was supposed to be my enemy. After one skirmish, I found myself face to face with a wounded Confederate soldier who had been left behind when his unit retreated. He was young, perhaps 20 years old, with a bullet wound in his shoulder that was bleeding badly. I could have left him there to die, and no one would have questioned my decision. He was the enemy, after all. But when I looked at him, I did not see a Confederate, or a traitor, or a defender of slavery. I saw a boy, terrified and in pain, crying for his mother. I bandaged his wound as best I could, and gave him water from my canteen. As I worked, he spoke to me between gasps of pain. He told me his name was Robert, that he was from a small farm in Georgia, that he had never owned slaves and never wanted to. He had enlisted because his state had called him to defend his home, because his friends were going, because he was young and didn't know any better. "I don't want to die here," he said. "I don't want to kill anyone. I just want to go home to my family. Same as you, I reckon." And he was right, Sarah. He was absolutely right. Most of the men fighting in this war, on both sides, are not politicians or plantation owners or abolitionists driven by ideology. They are ordinary men caught up in forces beyond their control, trying to do what they believe is right, trying to survive, trying to get home to the people they love. The tragedy of war is not just the death and destruction, but the way it forces good people to do terrible things to each other. The way it turns neighbors into enemies and brothers into adversaries. I sent Robert back to our lines as a prisoner, where his wound was properly treated, and eventually he was exchanged for one of our captured soldiers. I often wonder what happened to him, whether he survived the war, whether he made it home to Georgia. I wonder if he remembers our encounter, if it changed him the way it changed me. Perhaps some of you reading this have experienced similar moments, times when you saw the humanity in someone you were supposed to hate, when you realized that the divisions between us are often artificial, created by circumstance rather than truth. The third lesson, Sarah, came from observing the bonds between soldiers, bonds forged in the crucible of shared suffering and mutual dependence. In civilian life, men are often separated by class, religion, ethnicity, occupation, and 100 other distinctions. But in the army, in the midst of war, those distinctions fade away. The wealthy merchant's son shares his tent with the immigrant laborer. The educated lawyer fights alongside the illiterate farmer. The Protestant and the Catholic pray together before battle. In the face of death, we discovered what truly matters: loyalty, courage, compassion, and love. I have seen men sacrifice their lives for their comrades without hesitation. I have seen soldiers give their last rations to someone who was hungrier, share their blankets with someone who was colder, carry a wounded friend for miles even though they themselves could barely walk. These acts of selfless love, performed without expectation of reward or recognition, represent the very best of human nature. They remind me that even in the darkest circumstances, even when surrounded by hatred and violence, people are capable of extraordinary goodness. There is a soldier in our company named Michael O'Brien. an Irish immigrant who enlisted despite facing prejudice and discrimination in civilian life. He is one of the finest men I have ever known, brave in battle, generous in camp, always ready with a joke to lift spirits during dark times. Last month, during a reconnaissance patrol, we were ambushed by Confederate cavalry. Michael could have fled to safety, but instead, he stayed to help Private Johnson, who had been thrown from his horse and injured his leg. Michael fought off 3 Confederate soldiers while Johnson struggled to mount behind him, and though Michael took a saber cut to his arm in the process, he got Johnson back to our lines safely. When I asked him later why he had risked his life for Johnson, Michael looked at me as if the question made no sense. "He's my brother," Michael said simply. "You don't leave your brother behind." They weren't actually brothers, of course. Michael came from Ireland, Johnson from Tennessee. They had nothing in common except their uniform and their shared experience of war. But Michael's words revealed a profound truth. The bonds of brotherhood are not created by blood alone, but by shared struggle, mutual sacrifice, and love that transcends differences. In the army, I have learned that family is not just who you were born to, but who you would die for and who would die for you. Sarah, I know that you wonder sometimes why I enlisted, why I left you and the children to fight in this terrible war. You have never said so directly, but I can read between the lines of your letters. Hear the questions you are too kind to ask. Let me try to explain, though I am not sure I fully understand it myself. I fight because I believe that some causes are worth dying for, that freedom is one of those causes, that justice is one of those causes, that the proposition that all men are created equal is one of those causes. I fight because I cannot stand by and do nothing while my country tears itself apart, while human beings are bought and sold like cattle, while the very foundations of our democracy are threatened. I fight because someday, I want to be able to look our children in the eyes and tell them that when my country called, I answered, that when I was tested, I did not fail. But if I am honest, Sarah, I also fight because I am afraid. Afraid of being thought a coward, afraid of failing in my duty, afraid of letting down my comrades, afraid of living with the knowledge that I stood aside while braver men fought and died. Courage and fear are not opposites, I have learned. True courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act rightly despite fear. Every time we march into battle, I am terrified. My hands shake, my heart pounds, my stomach churns. But I go forward anyway, because my men are going forward. Because the cause demands it, because turning back would mean betraying everything I believe in. There are moments, though moments I am ashamed to admit, when I question everything, when I am standing in a trench, exhausted and cold, watching men die for a few yards of ground that will likely be lost again in the next battle. I wonder if any of this is worth it. When I write letters to the parents of dead soldiers, trying to find words of comfort that ring hollow even to my own ears, I wonder if all this sacrifice will actually accomplish anything. When I see the hatred in the eyes of Confederate prisoners, hatred that will not disappear just because the war ends, I wonder if we are really fighting for unity, or just exchanging one kind of division for another. But then I think of Benjamin, fighting for a future he may never see. I think of the slave families I have encountered during our marches, people who have lived their entire lives in bondage, who weep with joy when they learn they are free. I think of Emma and Thomas and the world. I want them to grow up in a world where the color of your skin does not determine your destiny, where all people have the chance to pursue happiness, where the promise of America is extended to everyone, not just the privileged few. And I know, despite my doubts and fears, that this war is necessary, that these sacrifices are not in vain, that what we are fighting for matters more than our comfort or even our lives. Sarah, my dearest Sarah, if I do not return from this warrant, you must prepare yourself for that possibility. As I have, there are things I need you to know, things I need you to do for me. These requests are my final wishes, the legacy I hope to leave behind when I am gone. First, I want you to tell Emma and Thomas that their father loved them more than life itself, that not a day passed when I did not think of them, when I did not carry their images in my heart as a talisman against despair. Tell them that I fought for their future, for a world where they could live without the shame and sin of slavery, staining our nation as conscience. Tell them that being brave does not mean never being afraid, but rather doing what is right, even when you are terrified. Tell them that true strength comes from compassion, from standing up for those who cannot stand up for themselves, from choosing love over hatred, even when hatred seems easier. I want Emma to know that she can be anything she wants to be in this life. Do not let anyone tell her that her dreams are too big or that certain paths are closed to her because she is a woman. I have seen women in this war perform acts of courage and service that equal anything the soldiers have done. Nurses who work in appalling conditions to save lives, scouts who risk capture and death to gather intelligence, even a few women who disguised themselves as men to fight alongside us. The world is changing, Sarah, and I pray that by the time Emma is grown, she will have opportunities that women of our generation never had. Encourage her strength, nurture her mind, and teach her that she is the equal of any man in worth and dignity. I want Thomas to know that being a man is not about violence or domination, but about responsibility and compassion. Teach him to be strong but gentle, brave but kind, confident but humble. This war has shown me the worst that men are capable of: the cruelty, the hatred, the capacity for destruction. But it has also shown me the best: the sacrifice, the loyalty, the love that drives men to die for their brothers. Help Thomas become the kind of man who uses his strength to protect the weak, his voice to speak for the voiceless, his life to make the world a better place. Tell him that his father was not a perfect man, that I made mistakes and had doubts and sometimes failed to live up to my own ideals, but that I tried always to do what I believed was right, and that is all any of us can do. Second, I want you to promise me that you will not let bitterness take root in your heart. If I die in this war, it would be easy for you to hate the Confederates who killed me to pass that hatred onto our children, to spend the rest of your life consumed by anger and desire for vengeance. But Sarah, that path leads only to more suffering, more division, more death. This war will end someday. All wars end eventually. And when it does, we will need to find a way to live together again, North and South, to rebuild our nation, to heal the wounds that have been inflicted. That work of healing will be impossible if we cling to hatred. Remember what I told you about Robert, the wounded Confederate soldier I helped. He was not a monster, not a demon, just a young man caught up in terrible circumstances, trying to do what he thought was right. Most of the men we are fighting are like Robert: ordinary people who found themselves on the opposite side of a conflict they did not create. When this war is over, we must find a way to forgive, not because the Confederates deserved forgiveness, but because we deserve peace. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing terrible wrongs. Slavery was and is a terrible wrong, and those who fought to preserve it must acknowledge that truth. But forgiveness means choosing to move forward rather than remaining trapped in the past, choosing to build rather than destroy, choosing love over hatred. I know this is an enormous burden to place on you, my love. You may be angry with me for asking it, but I believe with all my heart that the future of our nation depends on people like you, people who have suffered terribly but who nonetheless choose compassion over vengeance, who see the humanity in their enemies, who understand that peace is harder but more valuable than continued conflict. If you have experienced loss and chosen to forgive rather than hate, you understand how difficult but how necessary this choice is. Third, I want you to preserve these letters, to keep them safe for Emma and Thomas and perhaps even their children. I have tried in these pages to record not just the events of the war, but the lessons I have learned, the truths I have discovered about human nature and about what matters in life. These letters are my testimony, my attempt to make meaning out of suffering, my gift to future generations who I pray will never have to experience what we have experienced. Someday, perhaps, this war will seem distant and almost romantic to those who read about it in history books. They will see maps showing troop movements and battle lines, read statistics about casualties and campaigns, memorize the names of generals and the dates of major battles, but they will not know what it was like to stand on a battlefield surrounded by death, to watch friends die, to kill other human beings, to face your own mortality day after day. They will not understand the cost of the freedom and unity they take for granted. If my letters can help them understand, if my words can make the reality of war vivid enough that they will work harder for peace, if my testimony can inspire them to cherish the liberty that was purchased with so much blood, then perhaps my death will have meaning beyond the immediate military objectives we are fighting for. This is my hope, Sarah, that, out of all this suffering, something good and lasting can emerge, that the sacrifices we have made will not be wasted. Finally, my beloved Sarah, I want you to know that you have been the greatest blessing of my life. Every happy memory I have, every moment of joy and peace, every reason I have to believe in love and goodness, they all trace back to you. When I am cold and afraid, I think of your warmth. When I am surrounded by hatred and violence, I remember your kindness. When I doubt whether life has meaning or purpose, I think of the life we built together, the children we created, the love we shared. And I know that life is precious and beautiful despite all the darkness. If I survive this war and return to you, I will be a changed man. The things I have seen and done cannot be unseen or undone. I will carry the ghosts of this war for the rest of my life, the faces of dead friends, the memories of battles, the knowledge of what human beings are capable of when fear and hatred are unleashed. I may wake in the night from nightmares, may fall silent sometimes as the memories overwhelm me, may struggle to find joy in things that once delighted me. I ask for your patience and your love as I try to find my way back to the man I was, or perhaps forward to a new man, shaped by these experiences but not destroyed by them. But if I do not survive, if these are truly my last words to you, then know this: my last thoughts will be of you and Emma and Thomas. I will die grateful for the years we had together, thankful for the love you gave me, hopeful that you will find happiness again after I am gone. Do not mourn me too long, Sarah. Grieve. Yes, I would be hurt if you did not grieve, but then live. Live fully and joyfully. Find love again if you can. Laugh with our children. Watch the sunrise. Plant flowers. Bake bread. Do all the ordinary beautiful things that make life worth living. That is how you honor me, not by preserving my memory like a shrine, but by embracing life with all the passion and courage I know you possess. Teach Emma and Thomas that life is precious, that every moment matters, that love is stronger than death. Teach them that their father was just a man flawed and frightened, and far from perfect, but a man who tried to do right, who loved his family, who believed in something bigger than himself. Teach them that true heroism is not found on battlefields, but in daily acts of kindness, sacrifice, and love. Teach them that freedom is never free, that it must be defended and protected and extended to all people, but that the work of building a just society does not end with military victory, it begins there. I have written this letter over several nights, by candlelight in my tent, with the sounds of the camp around me, men talking, laughing, singing, living despite the constant presence of death. Tomorrow, we march toward Chancellorsville, where another battle awaits. I do not know what will happen there. I do not know if I will survive to write you another letter, but I know that whatever comes, I am ready. I have made my peace with the possibility of death. I have found meaning in this struggle. I have loved and been loved, which is the greatest achievement any person can claim. The sun is rising now, Sarah. I can see the first light touching the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. It is beautiful, achingly beautiful, and it reminds me that even in the midst of war, even when surrounded by death and destruction, life persists, beauty endures, hope remains. That sunrise is my final message to you and to our children, that darkness is never permanent, that light always returns, that no matter how terrible the night, morning will come. I love you, Sarah Mitchell. I love you with every fiber of my being, with every beat of my heart, with every breath I take. That love is my anchor, my strength, my reason for fighting, my reason for living. If these are my final words, let them be these: I love you. I love Emma. I love Thomas. And I die believing that the cause we fight for, the cause of freedom, justice, and human dignity, will ultimately prevail, not because right always wins, but because people like you will keep fighting for it, long after soldiers like me are gone. Until we meet again, whether in this life or the next, I remain forever yours. James. Sarah folded the letter carefully, her tears falling on the paper, adding new stains to those already there. She held it to her heart and closed her eyes, sending her love across the miles to wherever James might be, alive, wounded, or already gone from this world. Emma came to her side and wrapped small arms around her mother's waist. Thomas, not fully understanding but sensing the profound emotion in the room, came too, and the three of them held each other in the quiet farmhouse while outside the world continued its violent convulsions. James Mitchell survived the war. He returned home in the summer of 1865, thinner and haunted but alive. He never spoke much about his experiences, but the letters he had written told the story for him. Sarah kept them in a wooden box, and over the years, she shared them with Emma and Thomas as they grew, teaching them the lessons their father had learned at such terrible cost. Those letters became a family treasure, passed down through generations, a testament to love, courage, and the enduring human spirit. The war ended. Slavery was abolished. The Union was preserved. But the work of building a just society continued, as James knew it would, carried forward by ordinary people making daily choices about how to treat their neighbors, how to raise their children, how to balance justice with mercy, how to remember the past while building a better future. And in a small farmhouse in Maine, a woman taught her children that their father had been a hero not because he fired a rifle or charged into battle, but because he loved, deeply thought, carefully chose compassion over hatred, and believed that human beings could be better than their worst impulses. That, Sarah told them, was the real victory of the Civil War, not the military triumph of one side over the other, but the triumph of hope over despair, of love over hatred, of the stubborn human belief that tomorrow can be better than today if we have the courage to make it so. If this story touched your heart, share this video, and tell us in the comments, what was the most important lesson you learned today? Because every memory we share is a way to keep the flame of learning alive. This was another episode of the channel, Ancient Memories of America, from the series, Voices of the Past, part of the America We Remember, where every memory is a lesson, and every lesson, a legacy of faith and simplicity, keeping the flame of the past alive. Until the next episode.